In Activity 73, we see an example of another short-sighted policy, something that seems like it's going to work out well and may have a good initial outcome, but then has disastrous results. And like a number of the policies that we're going to look at in this section, this is something that had never been done before, and for good reason, because it doesn't work. So you can see in Activity 73, letter A, a description that Herbert Hoover gives, President Hoover gives, of something that he did shortly after the stock market crash. And as he puts it, for the first time in the history of depression, dividends, profits, and the cost of living have been reduced before wages have suffered. They were maintained until the profits had practically vanished. We'll notice from that, again, as I say, this was the first time in the history of depressions this had ever been done. Now, what is Hoover saying? What he did shortly after the stock market crash was get leaders of companies, business, and then leaders of workers together to come to an agreement. And I think the stated or unstated leverage that he had was that if you don't do it voluntarily, then we're going to force you to do it by law. But in any case, what Hoover got them to agree to was that they would do something completely different from what a company would naturally do when there's an economic downturn. When there's an economic downturn, you have less customers, so you don't need as many workers. There's less demand for your product. So typically companies will let some employees go because they don't need them, and it's just an expense to pay their salaries that's going to bring the company down if they're not needed. So what Hoover got them to agree to was, okay, even though you have fewer customers, do not let any of your workers go, and keep on paying them the same wages, because typically, again, if you have less demand, what should happen there in order to stay, for the company to stay afloat, is to even reduce the wages of their employees, the ones that they keep on. So I've drawn here company A. So in the short term, everybody's happy because everybody has a job. But what happens when the company stops making a profit and then goes out of business? Well, then now everybody is without a job because the company doesn't exist anymore. But what about the way things usually are done? You have company B, economic downturn, fewer customers. They have to find a way to survive, which means to continue making a profit. So they're going to let a couple of people go. So they're not happy. You have 2 employees stay on and 2 unemployed people. Now, in the short term, this is a painful way to go. But then this company stays in business. It gradually starts having more customers, and they can either hire on these folks again or some other company as the economy recovers. The key is to bring about an economic recovery. So this also resembles, if you recall, the route that we have spoken of previously in the class, which has a difficult short-term effect, but positive long-term one, which is economic recovery, whereas this one is less painful in the short term, but leads to even greater unemployment. And so in letter B, Hoover, just in another place describing the program that he pursued, again, for the first time in 15 depressions, nobody had ever done this before because it doesn't work. And the wages are held without reduction until after profits had ceased. And so I don't understand why he doesn't get that this isn't a good policy, that companies need to make profits. He even boasts in letter A that the U.S. had the highest real wages in the world when he was speaking, which was 1932, October. What he doesn't mention is unemployment is 25%. So what good is high wages when you have massive unemployment and suffering? Low wages would be better with greater employment. I think most people would agree. Letters C and D, those quotations are there to emphasize that it's a myth that Hoover was a do-nothing president and then Roosevelt came and had the government rescue Americans from the Great Depression. The fact of the matter is that Hoover was a president who tried to use the power of government to get us out of a depression, as he puts it in letter A. We met the situation, meaning the downturn, with proposals to private business and the Congress of the most gigantic program of economic defense and counterattack ever evolved in the history of the Republic. He's done something new. And Roosevelt took those ideas and made them even bigger, even did more. Did more government spending, more government programs, more government debt. You can see one of his top advisors saying in letter D that we didn't admit it at the time, but practically the whole deal was just an extension of programs that Hoover started. And Lippmann makes a similar point in letter C. This was something unprecedented in our history, the national government trying to get the economy to work prosperously. So just to see that, again, the government doing things doesn't seem to lead to prosperity. In the case of the 1930s, led to a Great Depression along with some other factors. Whereas again, it seems like the government not trying to bring about prosperity, not engaging in a lot of spending and policies, is strangely enough what brings about actual recovery. In Activity 74, we are going to look at, in the next video, some other programs that I don't think were very productive in getting us out of a depression.